Hello, Dragon Slayers. Welcome to our recording here on the first day of autumn. I am delighted again to be joined by my wise and inspiring cousin, Michael. Both of us have survived surgeries and have come out on the other side better for it. Uh, I wanted to talk today at a kind of a watershed time uh, from the eve tomorrow, Rosh Hashanah Eve, until 11 days after that, Yom Kippur. These are the days of awe for those of us of the Jewish faith. This comes as a great time, really, or an opportune time, because I believe that we need some awe right now in our society, and we need to look at the possibility of reconfiguring and re-examining who we are and where we are on our path. Uh, Michael, why don't you give us kind of a quick overview of the significance of this holiday, please?
Rosh Hashanah is called for in the Bible. Moses sets it out that this month will be for us the beginning of month, along with um, the holiday of Passover in the spring. But it but the um, the way he has commanded and it's set up is that this is the beginning of the seventh month, Rosh Hashanah, and that's the beginning of the Rosh means head or chief, and, and Shana, the year. Uh, and we are called at this time to um, certain observances and leading up to the festival of Sukkot or booths or tabernacles, where we live in booths or sukkahs, um, 2 days, 3 days, 2 or 3 days after Yom Kippur. But um, it's been an ancient pilgrimage festival to go to in the land of Israel, to go to Jerusalem and to celebrate this this holiday. And Rosh Hashanah itself is full of joy and gratitude. And then we come to um, and then but it's also a time. I mean, it's a time of celebration. You eat all kinds of things. It's lots of food, singing, prayer, and then a good time. Except it's the days of judgment, the days of awe, leading up to Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Kippur means to atone, and to become. The idea is to become at one, atone, at one, same word, same thing. You try to get right with the King of the universe. Um, you feel that Jews feel that generally we have succeeded in doing well. We expect a good judgment, and we come in with joy and gratitude. And then, 3 days after Yom Kippur, we have the great festival, the great pilgrim festival of Sukkot, which is actually for all the nations of the world. Um, Israel sacrifices for the nations. It's very consciously for the Gentiles, for all humanity, as well as for Israel. Um, but Rosh Hashanah, we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah in Galus and outside the land of Israel, one day in Israel. And then the day after that is the fast of Gedalia, which I know I'm giving you more than you bargained for, but the fast of Gedalia is really something. It's a historical thing commemorating the assassination by rogue Jewish people, rogue princes of the house of Judah, to kill the Babylonians' governor, who was a Jewish guy, a deputized guy, and all these Babylonian officers. And we commemorate this because it ended Jewish life in the land of Israel, in Jerusalem and the Holy Land, for more than 70 years until the restoration under Cyrus.
Help me with that.
Uh,
I'm sorry, Michael. we
Gedalia was quite a character. He was a really cool guy who was in well with the Babylonian leadership, but they picked him as their viceroy or governor of the land of Israel after they had conquered the Jews. Um, they weren't all bad, the Babylonians, and they were pretty bad. I mean, they were
so
savage.
so so just to give a historical context, where was Babylon right now in terms of
Iraq, Baghdad, basically,
so
around Baghdad.
Iraq? Okay,
Yeah, well, and these were the Chaldees, the Chaldeans. Uh, when I run into a Chaldean friend, we'll go over this history, and I'll admit that they kicked our asses. They really did. They succeeded, but we had it coming, according to the prophets. For they were used as God's scourge against the Jews, but they weren't all bad, and they wanted to try to create or maintain a Jewish state in the Jewish land, in the land of Israel, and they picked Gedalia for that. And Gedalia as speaks Chaldean, speaks Aramaic, speaks Hebrew, is there as a very good governor. And this is in Chronicles and in Kings in the Bible. Um, and what happens to Gedalia shouldn't happen to a dog. He accepted these Judean princes, these of the house royal, descendants of relatives of the last king, and they came in and they killed him and the Babylonian officers who were with them. And then they decided, we've really screwed up. Let's flee. So they left Israel, the land with no government, and a very vengeful Babylon. And so Babel, instead of having a Jewish governor and a Jewish government in Jerusalem, we had nothing, and the Babylonians just went crazy. Um, this is a fast that commemorates um, one of the principles it commemorates is that the Jews have no great gift for politics. And we really should, these people were complaining about Gedalia behind his back. They spoke ill of him. They thought he was a traitor, but he was really a good guy. He was murdered, foully, I mean, like Caesar with the knives. And um, and we commemorate this, and we commemorate the loss of our own government, of self determination,
and this holiday is what?
a fast.
No, but
It's after, immediately following all the good stuff, all the feasting and having a good time
it says it's after Sukkot.
of Rosh Hashanah.
It's after
No, immediately after Rosh Hashanah.
ah.
So it'll be Wednesday, or Wednesday this year.
So I never understood the significance of the fast. That's what it was about.
Immediately follows Rosh Hashanah, and it is a fast for a real great historical, political error, which incidentally points out the importance of secular affairs in the history of in the life of the Jews of Torah and the life of Torah. That we are, this is a historical religion. This is a religion that focuses on things that actually happened in history. And there was the good governor, Gedalia, and and for him we fast, and for our rashness, our failure to follow our actual interests, but to be bewildered by flim flam artists to mislead us. Because of this, the prophet Jeremiah ended up as a martyr. Um, all these people they panicked. They didn't know what to do after killing Gedalia. So they picked up themselves and their families, and they took the prophet Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah with them, who'd been warning against exactly this and saying, do not go back to Egypt. and in fact, it is a Torah prohibition against Jews going back to Egypt to live, but they did, and he ended up a martyr in in Egypt when there was an anti-Jewish reaction, and he
Jeremiah
got
did.
killed. Yep, yep. So the story is that he was hiding in a tree, and people, the people hunting down Jews cut it down. So yeah, well, it's a bloody history. I admit that. I mean, there are aspects of Jewish history that you don't want to tell little kids, but we do fast for Gedalia, um, and we mourn the 70 years, and it could have been more uh, of exile from our land, the land of Israel. We ended up in other places, and it was very difficult to come back.
So, but once again, in great cultures, whether it be Jeremiah or Cassandra, if you utter truth, it may not be rewarded immediately.
Well, they felt for Jeremiah, and they regarded him as a prize, and they wanted to take him with them, even though they had just murdered a good man and betrayed Israel. Betrayed the people and the cause of Israel in the world. But they liked him. It wasn't that they hated Jeremiah. It's just that they weren't bothering to listen to him.
Was evil visited upon the Jewish people as a consequence of that?
Yes, we were banished from the land. There was no Jewish government. There was just hostiles. Um, New people came in. They became known as Samaritans, who felt that the land, if this sounds familiar, they felt that this land is ours because the Jews had been banished from it. The Jews had obviously been scourged by no less than God himself, so they thought it was their turn to have the land. Um, but it's interesting because we were promised in Torah that when the Jews are not in the land of Israel, the land will enjoy its Sabbaths. It will lie fallow. No one else since the Canaanites, other than the Jews, has been able to make the land of Israel work for them. It has never been a productive land for anybody, really. I mean, the Turks and there were people who were able to take taxes out of the land, but the land always ended up um, as as a cursed land, as a desert, as a non-flourishing place, as a place you want to leave from, as it did during the 70 years of the banishment after, following the fall of the first temple. Between the first and the second temples, the land lay not entirely fallow. New people came in, but they didn't do well, and they were a disgrace. And after the fall of the second temple by the Romans, 2,000 years, the land was a mess. And what Palestinian says was a flourishing civilization was really a mess. I mean, Mark Twain saw it and declared Palestine to be a cursed, ugly land that hardly could carry any population at all. It's only the Jews who make the land of Israel work. But that's parenthetical to Gedalia.
But what you're
But Gedalia was a really heroic, brilliant man who meant well and would have done so well if he'd had a chance. But Jewish politics ended up killing him.
so what you're suggesting is if you think back to the time of Joseph and you think of the Babylonian captivity, there have been a number of diasporas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, the Jews have been spreading out. Remember that the Torah gives the Jews incredible power out in the world. I mean, we go through.
Please, I'm sorry, Mike, our audio lost you there for a moment, and there's wisdom.
Okay. Well, the Torah gives the Jews a lot of power out in the world. Um, I mean, We are a people who believe in bringing heaven to earth. We are a people who believe that history is continuous and that it isn't going to end with a rapture or be suddenly interrupted by an apocalypse. Um, we wait for Messiah, but we believe that things are going to end well. We have our, our, our religious principles that include principles of alertness and sobriety. So the Jews have a tendency of landing on their feet where they go. I mean, with lots of suffering, of course, and think of all the things our poor ancestors had to do to resettle penniless, being driven out of the different places that they've been. Um, but once the Jews land, the the good habits, the Torah knowledge, the idea that God is good and rewards virtue, um, and that there's all this and that, and all the ideas that come with being Jewish, with being part of Israel, are tremendously strengthening, fortifying. So, back in early Roman times, you had Strabo, the great geographer, going on about you could go through the whole empire, everywhere you went throughout the Mediterranean and anywhere, and you'll find that there's a Jewish community, and that the Jews have made themselves masters, the masters of the local community. I mean, that's anti-Semitism because they weren't masters; they had no political power. Uh, but if you
So
if you
when you look at contemporary times and you see the surge of anti-Semitism in this country and in Western Europe and beyond, this is a rhythmic pattern that continues to emerge in our history.
pretty invariable, but we believe that we're making progress and that we're failing at higher levels, you know. So we've come a long way from the 30s, where the Germans scourged and Western Europe scourged the Jews, and now we're in, I mean, look,
Well, I mean,
uh,
how many
100 years.
do the Jews have to the Icarus myth of flying too
Oh,
close to the sun?
um, I don't get it. What are you getting at? That we're flying too close to the sun? That
No,
we're
I mean,
exceeding?
there's kind of as we ascend, or as
Oh, right. Oh, well, no. Good. Good God, Tommy. No, we are Jews, and we believe that things will get better. And that we will understand more of the ways of the King of the universe. Um, I think we're making progress. If nothing else, in our time, we have come, at least our group has come closer to the secret of what the universal moral laws are. The Sheva Mitzvos B'nai Noach, the Noachide, or Rainbow Covenant laws.
which
And we,
actually is a very appropriate time for us to pause and to promote your book. Excuse me. There we are.
she is.
The Rainbow Covenant and my book,
There she is.
Dragon Slaying, uh, both which we contend has a bit of wisdom in it. Uh,
Well, it took me.
this comes as a watershed time for our country, by the way. I have been deeply troubled by the assassination of Charlie Kirk as well as the reaction to it. And I think one of the things that is demonstrated to me is that I believe in many ways we've lost our moorings. It seems almost as if you look at what's happened to various urban communities and the level of crime and the level of homicides and so on, and then it's almost as if we expand boundaries of what is considered hate speech. And as soon as you expand those boundaries, it then justifies some elements of our society to say, well, someone has uttered hate speech, and as a consequence, that person warrants destruction. And I think we're in the midst of that right now. And we need to look at this in the context of all of the dislocation of our youth. I would contend that our youth have never been quite so troubled. Rates of homicide, rates of homicide in the inner city continues to expand. Rates of suicide are now impacting at least the possibility of it, according to surveys, to as many as 1 in 4 of our young people. People have lost their anchors. They no longer seem to have found a way of believing that there is a hopeful path for themselves, which comes at really a watershed time for this holiday. That is, we need to re-anchor ourselves in faith, in kindness, in compassion, and taking a page from your book, following the noetic laws. I think part of our problem is that our young people are spending too much time victimized by electronic media. One could argue that the assassin responsible for Charlie Cook's death may have been seduced by a world of video games, as if a killing had virtually no meaning. Or if that meaning was real, he certainly was not fully appreciated by the perpetrator, who alleged, in effect, that a doppelganger, a double, had done it. So we need to kind of look hard at our society and find positive anchors for young people and youth. And I would say there have been few times in our history where young people and youth have been so lost. Michael, would you care to comment on this?
Well, belief in the God of Israel is pretty low. I mean, people regard the God of Israel, the Creator, um, the Father God of Christianity, Allah, uh, often as a figment. I don't know about America's level of homicides or suicides. I was just seeing that South Korea has this extremely dynamic art culture and economy and engineering, but they're they don't have remotely a replacement rate of reproduction. They have, I think, the world's highest rate of suicides and an extremely high rate of youth unemployment. It's like depression levels on unemployment for young South Koreans who are trying to get started in life. Um, and they are also between religious dispensations. I mean, I'm presuming that we are between religious dispensations, that the old religions aren't holding people the way they used to, and the new religions haven't come in yet. We have a lot of people who kind of play at Buddhism and aspects of Eastern religions, but nothing. There's not a lot of solace in those religions. There's no particular God, for instance. Um, we Jews believe that we are intimately related to an extremely good God. You know, someone who is with us. We say like the Magan David, like the Magan Avraham, the shield of Abraham. That God is as close as a shield. That He is intimately involved with us, and and we feel this influence, this wholly unimaginable, but nonetheless absolutely realer than real. God as our intimate, and that He is guiding um, the society, and given human free will, that He's guiding it in a particular direction and for particular results, uh, which is human betterment, which is human increasing human greatness. And we look at history and we see this pattern is consistent with history, that the human race is becoming increasingly uh, capable and in many ways um, much more decent, much more peaceful, um, much more incisive and beautiful. In our I look at you and I see faces of our ancestors, our family, and I'm thinking of we both have the same picture in our dining rooms, I think, of our aged forebears, and uh, and they lived at a time when it was. I was talking to a friend about this. It was interesting. People would think it was funny to um, uh, take shots at each other. They go to a bar and they play these gambling games, and if you won, you got to clop your friend, your neighbor, in the face with your fist. Or I mean, all kinds of crazy things like that. And they would take pleasure in this kind of thing. And that was not that. That was in years that started with a 19. Wasn't that long ago. Um, and the savagery before that was less speakable, and people were much more miserable. And you know um, I mean, we can laugh and say, well, at least now we have hot water on demand, you know most of us. And you don't have to go and move buckets of water all the time, or wood for to stay warm. But we really have come a long way, and I think morally, and I think our understanding of the higher laws of Torah has developed too. Well, and certainly, like I was talking about the seven laws, um, that my this movement that I'm attached to has been attacked by Nazis. It is regularly attacked by Nazis who feel that the seven laws are a Jewish plot to take over the world for one world government, and that the Jews' idea of the way the world should be would be with the Jews sitting on a saddle astride the world with whips, and pushing the world in its direction. But we know the way the Noahide laws are supposed to work is that um, people are supposed to determine their own laws for themselves. The highest form of government, and we're all called to make government, to to have a system of laws and governance instead of anarchy, instead of oppression, that is just and right. Um, but it is for each individual, each people, each nation to determine its own laws for itself. And anything less than that is a flight from responsibility, a flight from your God-given obligations, to make good government. Right now, we're having a problem believing in good government, and democracy is the god of democracy. The idea that we, the people, should be self-governing is something that is under attack. Uh, I mean, a lot of people feel, well, that's not going to work. They've given up faith in the American experiment. So, um, I mean, there's a lot of that going on. How are we going to resolve these things? I, I feel that America's greatest times are ahead of it. But the question is, how are we going to get there? Um, I think there's a great deal of good in people, and I think most Americans really want government of the people, by the people, and for the people to work. Um, but we're shaky on that now. Would you say?
Well, I think part of the problem is that I don't think we take responsibility in our educational systems right now to prepare an enlightened citizenry to participate in that democracy. A democracy is anchored on enlightened citizens. And right now, many of us are ill prepared to understand what it takes to be an enlightened citizen.
Well, and a lot of that is because of the religious infrastructure that we have. I think Marxists call it the superstructure, but what people believe. Because a lot of people believe that there is no God, that history is meaningless, that life and the world are an accident, that morality is just the rules of the powerful, and um, and that there's nothing in government that is worth defending, and that justice is a chimera, and what's the point? And indeed, if all of life, creation, the trillion galaxies of of the cosmos is just an accident, like what do we have? I think those ideas have become very powerful, and they and they chase the idea that life and the earth uh, have have a ruler of justice and righteousness who rewards justice and righteousness.
Well, as a psychiatrist, I can say that one of the things we dread hearing from our patients is the emergence of what we refer to as the malignant triad of hopelessness, helplessness, and worthlessness. And if you extrapolate that to an entire society that says we as a culture are hopeless, we as a culture are helpless, we as a culture are worthless, so we have no gods, we have no moral anchors, we have nothing that holds us together, that is a path to social and cultural suicide. So we need to flip that around.
Well, and as a lawyer, I have the sense that we have to take, we have to seize, um, we have to be responsible, and we have to understand that the government depends on us, that we, the people, are the government, and that we, um, and that we're obligated to pursue justice and righteousness, and that life and the world are real. I mean, I'll talk to. I was talking to somebody, and he was going on about he's a Christian, good Christian, and he really believes all this Christian stuff, um, and including the idea that the rapture is going to rescue him, and that history. He and another fellow were going on, and they were saying, "Well, I think we're really screwed. So I think the world will end, in probably the next 3 years." And I mean, they were actually saying that they think there's no particular point to plan for the future because they expect to be raptured up, that the world will be cooked. One guy wasn't such a great Christian; he didn't know about any rapture really, but that everything was going to end because everything was so lousy. Um, and I think there's even an idea that they ought to do what they can to sabotage things, to hasten things, so we could get going with this show.
Well, if you look at the history of Western civilization, there have been a number of times in the emergence of Western civilization where people believe that this to be the end of times.
Oh, every generation. Yeah, in my book, the rabbi who wrote the foreword was going on about he was sure that in every generation they think this is it. That they think the apocalypse is just next Thursday, or something like that. They're pretty sure we're cooked, you know. But again, we have another religion, and that religion is that it's our obligation as human beings to make this world an earthly garden. We're going to bring heaven down to earth. That things are going to get better, and that we're ultimately going to prevail. There's a great confidence in this. And with it is this idea too that we are, all of us, human beings, and that we are all made in the image of God, whatever that means.
So as we bring this dialogue to a close, as we're embarking on the holiest time in our year, can you offer us a message of hope?
Well, I'm very confident things will get better. that the King of the universe is working with us. We've made terrific progress. Um, some things are hard to understand. I mean, I don't know when you look at we're looking at this war in Gaza where Israel is trying to make advances in a land that has been fortified like no other land has ever been fortified with military tunnels running throughout it. And they have a war on their hands, and that the world is listening to Arab propaganda about the number of innocent casualties. Um, when you're dealing with this a militarized population that makes the Hitler Youth look like a day at the beach, um, and you and the hard facts in the ground of concrete and steel fortifications everywhere, and lots of explosive provided by the Qataris. So we're seeing all these countries recognizing a two-state solution, and there is no two-state solution. The other state has to be carved out of little New Jersey-sized Israel, which doesn't sound, you know, it's like in order for peace, you're going to have to give up two of your kidneys. You know, that's very interesting about what did you call it? The triad, the
The malignant triad.
malignant triad. Yeah, that's hopelessness, worthlessness, helplessness.
Helplessness. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let us stay away from that, doctor.
So, which means that we need to be,
I mean, as a lawyer, I'm sorry.
which to the contrary is we need to be hopeful,
Yes. Yeah.
we need to be empowered, and we need to be self-valuing as a culture and as individuals. We are worth something. We are the children of God.
Well, we are, and it's important to regard God not as a figment, as is very frequently taught, or as a foolish old being that you can pull his leg or worse, uh, and fool him. Coming to around to understanding, appreciating that the God of Abraham is a God of insight and wisdom and justice is itself some protection against that malignant triad, and we'll do what we can.
Michael, appreciating that these are special times for you, can we count on you for more perspectives next week?
Delighted. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We'll have to find a day that's not a holy day. Well, that's the thing. The Jews go into the season. I was telling somebody we go into the season like we as cheerful as steers going to the slaughter because we got a month that's just starting tomorrow night of holiday after holiday and special considerations, and you're being judged, and you're going to be on your toes, and then you got another holiday. Then and Sukkot is 8, maybe 9. It's hard to keep track. Interminable days, of holiday. So and dwelling in a sukkah, and all these sorts of things. So it gets a little exhausting. So uh,
Well, I would also ask you to convey my love to my relatives in Motown, should you see them. Uh,
should I see them? Okay. Yeah, my pleasure.
Once again, it has been a delight to share the airways with you, uh, and may the new year bring you good health,
Amen.
ongoing wisdom, and brilliance. Okay,
Amen. Amen. Gamlacha, back to you.
okay. I love you, cousin. Be well.
And shalom.
Shalom.